This is It's Electric on Beats One, and my guest is Jack White. You look remarkably calm and collected for, I know obviously you're T-minus 3 days from the record.
Yes.
You've got your first show tonight outside of your home court advantage.
Exactly.
So now you're here for a couple hours, and then I presume you got like a sound check, and I mean,
Yeah. Once the tour starts going, I start not doing sound checks. I start to think that they start messing up the energy of the night because we don't have a set list at night. So, but now we need all the time we can get because there's so many songs. We've rehearsed about 60 songs, I think, in the last few weeks, and we haven't had a chance to get back to some of them. Some of them we've only played one time. So today it's gonna be one of those long sound checks where we go through lots of things.
You know, set list, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. You know, obviously you're well known, and you and I think have talked in the past about you just sort of call it out as you go along. So the fellas and Carla have about 60 songs that they can pretty much play at
That's
the
the
snap
hope.
of a finger.
That's the hope, yeah. A lot of the times, the songs that you play, if I pull out something that we've never rehearsed in the middle of a set, those end up being almost better than the ones we've rehearsed. It's like so interesting where we take it and what they add to it. You know, they sort of like learn as we're going, trial by fire kind of thing.
Tell me about the new players.
This is Neil Evans and Quincy McCrary, the two keyboard players that are really amazing. They come from more of the hip-hop and R&B world, and they really just bring some incredible tones to what we're doing.
Have they been on your radar for a long time, or there's somebody who just sort of showed up kind of out of the sessions of the record? Or
Yeah, they were in the sessions of the record. I really wanted to find musicians that played with hip-hop artists on stage that backed up Kendrick or Jay-Z or Kanye or something like that, because I thought that was a sort of a special musician that can replicate what's done on a hip-hop track, whether it's a sample or a drum machine, but replicate it live with real drums and real bass. I wanted to play with that kind of musician.
Right.
And so it was sort of like going through videos and saying, what about that guy? What about that keyboard player? Who's that? And, asking around. And then we finally came across two bands, one in New York and one in LA, all strangers I'd never played with before.
Wow.
Went right in and just started recording songs and took those same songs to LA and said, now you guys play on them.
Right.
I'll play along with the same tracks. So there were some of these tracks had, 3 drummers on them, 15 different tracks of 15 different instruments. So really complicated editing, but this was the first time I edited a whole album on Pro Tools because it was so complicated.
I saw Kendrick as you're talking. I remember about 3-4 years ago at the Outside Lands Festival in San Francisco, where you've also played and we've played. I saw Kendrick and his fucking backing band. I mean, they're on fire.
Yeah.
Is there a springboard? Is there a muse? Is there somebody that you go to and sort of say, is this working? Is this cool? Could it be better? You produced the record yourself. Is there somebody in your ecosystem that says, Jack, hang on, that's just not cutting it?
I've got a different situation for every band. Like in the Raconteurs, me and Brendan were the songwriters. It was sort of like a Lennon and McCartney kind of thing. In the Dead Weather, all 4 of us were the songwriters. To the point when we'd finished the album, we couldn't even remember who wrote what. And we'd go like, I think I wrote the chorus on that. You know what? You should take that one.
Where it's not heard often in a song credit conversation.
Exactly.
You take that one. Okay.
Oh, man. And then the White Stripes. Meg had no feedback with me. I would play songs and she just kind of would go, no word would come out of her mouth. It was like, maybe that's. I think that was good. I think she likes it.
I was talking to Noel Gallagher, and he was saying that the great songs, I don't know if he was referring to the Wonderwalls of the world or whatever, but he said that the great songs that he writes, he doesn't even have to, write it down or commit it to tape. It just stays in his head, and that's how he knows if it's good. And then another incredibly gifted songwriter, say like James Hetfield, I swear to you, 35 years, he'll forget it like 12 seconds after he played it.
Right, yeah.
And if it's not committed to tape or I was not there going, hey, wait a minute, that's really cool, then it just dissipates, right?
Yeah.
And the good thing about Hetfield is he's so prolific that, he'll just spit these things out, at a moment's notice. Where do you fall with that? If there's something that you really like, do you then have to sort of commit it to tape, or do you keep it just stored away somewhere back there?
I try to do that now if I'm in the studio. And if I'm at my other, like in the house, my engineer just brought me this little pedal. It looks like an effects pedal. And it's just, you press it in and it records your riff that you're playing. And it keeps like 80 hours of music on it. So I've got that now, and I've been recording things to
Wow.
that. But you know what's funny is nobody ever around me. I swear I don't know what this is, but nobody ever around me when I'm playing says, "Hey man, that's a good riff." My friend Ben Swanker, he was with me in Australia, and we were at soundcheck, and I wrote the riff for Seven Nation Army at this soundcheck, and I was playing it for him. I said, "Hey man, what do you think of this?" And he's like, "It's okay." You know?
Don't ask him anymore. He doesn't get circled back
I'll
to.
be teasing him about that forever. Yeah.
So there was no like running in circles after you guys finished a Seven Nation Army.
It's like that. It's not. And then when I see those, it used to be like you watch, these documentaries where you see bands like, we went #1 in Champagne and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, what's that like? I've never been in a band like that where everybody is sort of like excited that something good happened.
Do you ever miss that?
Yeah, I think so, because it's tough. And I think when when you're like I miss, it's a solo thing I'm doing now, just under the name Jack White. They're sort of, they become hired guns that are behind you. They're my friends, but they're also hired guns. We're not a band. That seems to be the most, strangely enough, where we hug afterwards and say, "That was great. I love that solo you did, or that keyboard tone you put in there. That was amazing." That seems to be the most complimentary. You know how it is? Maybe it's like brothers and sisters. You love each other so much where you kind of really don't talk to each other and compliment each other until there's these one moment a year you'll say, "I love you," or something at Christmas or something.
Of course, yeah.
That's just how it goes.
But it's also, everything you're touching upon there is also, all that stuff really changes along the way. Because
it's true.
Like you said, in my case, Hetfield and I, we would never compliment each other back in the day. And now it's exactly the opposite.
Right.
Because you wake up one day and go, "Holy this is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm in a band, with these people. I get along with them. It's, this is all, it's like you're through the fucked up part of it. Some of it was documented in that movie and all that stuff. But you you go through all these peaks and valleys, and then all of a sudden you just wake up one day and go like, me, 35 years later, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot of, "How you doing?" And, it's almost, we spend more time, I think now, working on the relationships, making sure everybody's cool,
That's great.
making, like the health of the band and everybody, in terms of, does this schedule work for you?
Right.
All that type of stuff, than almost anything else. The creative element, it's, it sort of finds it weaves its way out of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the touring and all that. If you got 4 guys that are happy, all the rest of it's kind of a cakewalk after that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. And then you have what, if in my brain, which is, you look at other bands or your own bands and say, did we, when we were not complimentary, when we were 25 years old, and was that struggle, was that angst, was that inexperience and inability to talk to each other, was that where that produced better results than when we're being super friendly?
Yeah,
and then you can't, you don't know. There's no way to define
And that's always,
that,
it's, nowadays with, computers and Pro Tools and, Hetfield has, 1,500 riffs and all this type of stuff. We get sort of weighed down by the amount of options that there is. And I think back to when we were 25 and we did Ride the Lightning, we just did it.
Yeah.
We didn't think about it. There wasn't all these options. It was like, you have 2 weeks in the studio, you got a fucking Tascam 4-track. You can't, there's no harmonies that goes on the demo because there's no more tracks.
No more track stuff, yeah.
All that kind of shit. And it just, we sit here, certainly we made the last record. I spent a lot of time going, in 1985, we didn't think about it. We just did it.
Just do it,
where does that instinct? Where does that go to?
See, we would, when the White Stripes were first coming out, we thrived off that. We recorded White Blood Cells in 3 days, and it's 2 people, 3 days, probably cost like $5,000. I know that we didn't spend much time at all on anything. Right. And then I know that you can do that now. At times I can do that now and it works, but there's also times I do that now and it's not enough. There's something to do about I think with this album I worked on, where I said 3 days in New York and 3 days in LA. I went in and because they were strangers, I got a taste of that again.
Nobody had ever heard the material before.
No. I never said we're making a funk record, we're making a hip hop record, we're making a rock and roll record. I never said anything about what we're doing because I didn't want to ruin their take on the groove that we had.
And so at that time, are you doing some singing, doing some scatting?
Some of it, yeah, some of it. And then a lot of times I'll pretend that I have the song written as a thing for me. I'll go and say, okay, I've got this one I've been working on. I don't got shit. I got this one I've been working on. Starts in C, and we sit down. Everyone's all attentive, and I'm just making up as I go on, as if I've got a gun to my head and someone's telling me, write a song right now. And pretend that's a scenario. They don't know it, but I know it. And cool things come out of that for me. I really like it. As long as you're a good actor and they don't sense that you're smell
insane.
that,
So the one thing that you said in that was, pretend you have a song written. So as you were going along on this particular path with 3 days in New York and 3 days in LA, there was a fair amount of impulsivity, spontaneity. I mean, you're just like, let's go into a room and see what happens. So it wasn't, here's a song I wrote 3 months ago here and here. It was just jams, basically.
A lot of them were, yeah. There's a couple things here and there. I had started the album. I had rented an apartment in Nashville, just a real Spartan apartment. It was an army cot, and I used same 4-track Tascam that I had when I was 14, 15 years old, same mixer. And I thought, I'm going to write here with headphones on so the neighbors can't hear. No amps, no real drums, going straight into the 4-track, reel-to-reel. Let's see, if I knew then what I know now, what would be different? How would I record different? How would I do things differently? It was so interesting. It was like going back in time and all this muscle memory. Like I was just going and pushing the buttons without even looking. Like, wow, man, I've done that move 3,000 times. I didn't even realize it. I hadn't done it in 20 years.
Is it the actual same?
Yeah,
the actual one
stuff. Yeah. So that was great, and so that was the genesis of it.
Ice Station Zebra.
Yeah.
The first 90 seconds to 2 minutes of that, I mean, it's fucking nuts, dude. I mean, it's
crazy,
crazy shit happening. To me, the first couple of minutes of that track sounds sort of the epitome of the way that you describe the record.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. And that came out a couple years ago. I had worked on a few tracks with Jay-Z. We were going to do an album together, just never culminated, and we didn't finish. But that was something I played drums, piano, guitar, and bass on as an idea for him to maybe inspire him to do something. Nothing came back, so I had that track, and now it was going through stuff in New York and LA, and I brought that up. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. Let's see what they can do with this. Guys, play, control them. Play along with this, see what happens. And I played it, and they were coming up with these cool clav parts and cool organ and sample hits and percussion and congas and stuff. And I just thought, wow, this has got some real life to it. And it turned into a real intricately written and edited song.
Yeah, I mean, it's got this real interesting balance to me between total freeform and at the same time you can I can find the arrangement. And if you then take a couple of the other songs like What's Done Is Done and the last the Capone Humoresque, dude, you fucking cover a lot of musical territory.
It's crazy. Yeah.
If one side is those kind of crazier Ice Station and over is the heavier tracks, and then almost like lullaby or almost like sounds like folk music, was that always the intent to sort of cast the net that wide, or is that again something that happens just as you move along through the process?
Yeah, it was kind of like I was saying, where I just kind of let the songs tell me what to do, and I don't try to force them into any situation. I like to set up the environment of how we record. That's important to me, to set up all those boxes. But as far as what actually music is coming out, I have no preconceived notions of what it's going to be. And yeah, by the end of the time, we have all these things that I never would have thought we would have a humoresque, or never would have thought we would have over and over a song I'd worked on for years that finally all of a sudden worked out. These are this makes an album of every song's a different personality, which I think a lot of people probably don't like. I think a lot of people, maybe on paper they would say, "Oh no, I like variance in it," but I think a lot of people say they actually kind of like a good theme and a mood to stay the same.